everybody, Joe Brady here, and I'd like to thank you for joining me. It's a beautiful day here at Dingman's Falls. I'm actually at a smaller cascade a little downstream from the primary falls, but this is one of my favorite places to shoot. And what's even better is the water flow is down a little bit. That means I'm going to be able to walk out into the rocks in front of these small cascades and get some really interesting shots. Now, it's really bright right now. It's the early afternoon, and you can see the sun is hitting the falls behind me. So that's going to make exposure a challenge. It's also going to make slowing down the shutter speed a challenge if you're after getting that smoother, silky look of the water if it's flowing down the cascade. And that's exactly what I'm after today. So what I brought with me are some ND filters, or neutral density filters. Now, I've got one on my camera right here. Let me turn this around. I just put a 2-stop on here. And the trick to getting, I find, to getting the best exposure is to get an exposure without the filter on your camera. See what a good exposure is. So let's say, for argument's sake, it came out at f/16 at a 30th of a second. Well, if you put a 2-stop ND filter on, which is what this is, that would cut the exposure down by 2 stops. So what does that mean? Well, when you're doing this, you're changing the shutter speed. So if it was 30-second without the filter, if I put the 2-stop filter on, it would be 2 stops, or 30 to 15th of a second would be 1 stop, to 1/8 of a second would be 2 stops. Now, it's actually a little brighter out there than that. So I'm going to go right to a little heavier filter. This is a 2-stop, and in my back pocket, I also have a 4 and an 8. So let's go ahead and put a 4-stop on, and that's going to be 4 stops. So again, using the same math, if my exposure was correct at a 30th of a second with no filter on it, 1 stop, 15th, 2, and 8th, 3 stops, a quarter, 4 stops would be a 1/2 a second. Now again, as I said, it's a little brighter out there, and since it's so bright, I can actually probably get a reading from my camera with the filter on here, so you wouldn't have to go through that mathematical step. And again, since this is a mirrorless camera, that makes it a lot easier. Now, I'm going to do a couple shots with a 4. We'll see how that looks. I'll come back to you with the numbers that I come up with. And we may want to add. Maybe 4 stops isn't enough. Maybe I really want this water to go silky smooth. If that's the case, you can stack the ND filters. So I can take this 2, put it on top of here, and that will give me 6 stops. But let's see what we get with 4 stops first. So let's go over this all one more time. ND filters are just simply going to cut down the amount of light coming into your camera. Common ones to use are 3, 6, 10, or 2, 4, 8. I have both combinations. I've got a 2 and a 4 with me today. I generally find 3 to 6 is what I want. 2 is by itself really isn't doing enough. So if you're looking for your first ND filter, get a 3. Your second one should be a 6. Remember that you can screw them on together, and it just simply adds together. Now, the beauty of using a mirrorless camera is that you see the effect right away through the viewfinder. So for example, in this case, I've got a 4 and a 2 on my camera. My shutter speed is now down to a 1/6 of a second, and my aperture is actually at f/22. Yep, f/22. So at f/22, I'm getting a 1/6 of a second exposure. Now, since I didn't bring a cable release, most cameras have timers built into them. I set my camera's timer to 2 seconds. So it'll count 1, 2, and take the shot. So ND filters aren't just for waterfalls. Maybe you just want a better reflection. I've got this beautiful stream flowing down to the bridge. By going down to a 1/6 of a second, it's going to take out a lot of the ripples of the water and give me a very smooth reflection up to the sky. So again, it's a tough day today. It's a tough time of day because the sun is hitting part of the water. When that's the case, expose for the brightest thing you need to maintain detail in. Now, if the sun's actually reflecting off the water, there's not going to be any detail in there, so you can ignore that. But anywhere where there's detail to be maintained, shoot for that. It may make the shadows look dark, but that's easily fixed later in software. Just bring your shadow slider up. So there's some examples on how and why to use an ND filter. Remember, they're just going to cut down the amount of light coming into your camera. And if you need more, just combine them together on the front of your camera and they just add up together. Great tool to have for when you're photographing waterfalls, flowing water, or anytime you want a really long exposure. So that's it from Dingman Falls. I hope you have a wonderful Monday morning coffee, and I will see you again soon, probably this Friday for Photo Friday. Thanks for watching. See you then. Bye-bye.